International Relations at the University of Bristol. Thank you very much for speaking to us on France 24. I want to start then with Donald Trump, who we've just heard from. He said he's not thrilled about Israel's strike on Hamas figures in Doha, but if Washington really didn't want to see this strike happen, could it have stopped it?
I think it's difficult to believe the United States did not have control on these events. The United States has one of its largest military bases in Qatar, therefore meaning that they have quite a good control of the situation in that part of the world, and probably they could have seen this happening before. Israel is also the closest ally of the United States in the Middle East, meaning that hardly this could have happened without any information being given to the United States in advance. But that's what they claim. Apparently, they received information only at the very last minute and did not manage to notify the Qatari authorities in advance.
You mentioned the military base that the US has in Qatar. This obviously then is a sensitive issue. What might this mean for US-Qatar ties?
Well, U.S.-Qatari relations are very important. They're very close to each other. They have a very solid and continuous military collaboration based on the U.S. bases that is in Qatar, but also on U.S. sales of weapons to Qatar, which are significant. Qatar has spent at least $8 billion in hosting the U.S. military facility in its own territory, meaning that they invested a lot in this facility. Therefore, the fact that this facility doesn't grant for the security of Qatar, as it was demonstrated yesterday, may actually produce a degree of disagreement between Qatar and the United States. And in fact, Qatar has released some significant declaration in that respect. They consider Israel's attack a criminal attack, and they are obviously not satisfied by the way in which the United States has reacted to it thus far.
And where does this leave ceasefire talks? I mean, obviously, Qatar has been a key mediator in any negotiations between Israel and Hamas. What can we expect to happen now?
I think this is the final nail in the coffin of any kind of negotiations that is taking place between Israel and Hamas, as far as it is mediated by Qatar. Qatar has always been the diplomatic channel of these negotiations, and it does not intend to pay a direct price, as it did yesterday, with a violation of its territorial sovereignty and its safety by playing this role. And if that is obviously the kind of consequence that also Netanyahu and the Israeli government probably expect to happen. What may happen next is that if negotiations will probably continue most likely in Egypt and not with Qatar as a mediator. It is hard to say. Also, another aspect is how Israeli-U.S. relations are going to play out at this point. It very much looks like at this point we were in front of a case of a tail wagging the dog rather than the other way around, whereas Israel seems like it's deciding U.S. foreign policy in the region rather than the other way around.
And what about any reaction from the Gulf states? What do you expect that will be? I mean, we're seeing the president of the UAE visiting Qatar at the moment. What do you make of that?
I think this is a very important question. As your reporter was saying, we are expecting a set of visits to Qatar. There has been very vociferous solidarity towards the Qatari leadership, also from states that do not necessarily go very much along with Qatari's foreign policy decisions, meaning that the Gulf is united behind Qatar. Gulf countries are countries that are used to see these conflicts from afar and not being directly targeted and dragged into this conflict. If we take the exception of the June Iranian attack on Qatar territory aside, meaning that they obviously will not tolerate easily the degradation of the security environment in that part of the world, and therefore they will try to unite their voice against this type of operations, and we will obviously have their voice heard also in Washington in that respect.
Do you see this attack as having any implications on the Abraham Accords?
I think in the short term, we are not going to see a direct impact on this, but the United Arab Emirates, which are the main country involved in these accords, have already voiced a degree of dissatisfaction on how things are developing in Israel-Palestine. And in particular, they have declared that there are certain red lines that they expect not to be crossed, also with regard to Gaza and the West Bank. And also the fact that yesterday the leadership of the UAE has immediately visited Qatar is a strong sign of their dissatisfaction towards the Israeli attack towards Qatar. And therefore, yes, they may try to leverage that accord as a way to obtain an Israeli leadership that behaves more according to their expectation in the region.
And the strikes also come as Israel continues to pound Gaza City with airstrikes, demolishing dozens of high-rise buildings, but also asking for the complete evacuation of Gaza City. An estimated 1 million Palestinians live in that northern area of the Strip. Where are they to go?
Well, this is the question everyone is asking. I mean, Israel is being accused by the international community, by international courts of carrying out ethnic cleansing, genocide, violation of humanitarian law on all possible levels. And the evidence is piling up day after day. These operations will further corroborate the credibility of those accusations. And therefore, yes, there is no clarity of those or where those million Palestinians could actually go while those military operations are ongoing. The reality is that Israel and the Israeli military does not seem to care very much about it, and that's tragic, at least.
All right, Filippo Dionigi from the University of Bristol, thank you very much for your analysis. We'll have to leave it there.
Thank you.